Good day, ma'am. Today I will discuss the other law enforcement agencies, bureaus, offices, and department of government. Then, first is the PDEA or the um, Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. So, PDEA is the lead anti-drug law enforcement agency, which is responsible for preventing, investigating, and combating any dangerous drugs and controlled precursors and essential chemicals within the Philippines. So its functions implement or cause the efficient and effective implementation of the National Drug Control Strategy promulgated by the board, thereby carrying out a national drug campaign which shall include drug law enforcement, control, and prevention campaign with the assistance of concerned government agencies. So, their function is the implementation of the national drug control strategies, which is formulated by the board. So, the first campaign, which shall include the drug law enforcement, control, drug prevention campaign with the assistance of the government agency. So next, BC or the Bureau of Customs. So one of the lead agencies responsible for the control and monitoring of the export of weapons of mass. So, um, the function supervise and control all import and export cargoes. Then who landed or stored in piers, airports, terminal facilities, then including container yards and freight station. So for the protection of government revenue. So exercise exclusive original jurisdiction over seizure and forfeiture cases under the tariff and customs of laws. So Bureau of Customs uh, is responsible for the monitoring and control the export and import of weapons of mass. So their functions also are um, supervise the, and control all any import and export of cargoes landed or in the piers or airport, terminals, and facilities. So next, the BFP or Bureau of Fire Protection is the government body in the Philippines responsible for the provision of fire services. So it is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Interior and local governments. Function is responsible for ensuring the public safety through the prevention of or suppression of all destructive fires in on buildings, houses, and other similar structures. So, um, they ensure the public safety through the suppression and or prevention of all destructive fires in on buildings, houses, and other similar structures, forests, and land transportation vehicles and equipment. So, and next, Philippine Coast Guard or PCG mandated and responsible to perform maritime search and rescue operations. So, they were in charge or they will be the one to perform maritime search and rescue, maritime law enforcement, maritime safety, and marine environmental protection, and maritime securities. Then function. So they were responsible in the formulation of respective policies of the five functional areas of PCG. So they have five functional areas. First is the maritime safety. Second, maritime environmental protection, maritime security, maritime law enforcement, and search and rescue operations. So That's the function of the PCG. Then next is BIR, Bureau of Internal Revenue, is an agency of Department of Finance. So uh, BIR collects more than half of the total revenues of the government. So their function to assess and collect all national and all national internal revenue taxes, fees and charges, and to enforce all forfeitures, penalty tax, fines connected therewith, including the execution of judgment in all cases decided in its favor by the Court of Tax. They were the one to assess, collect all national internal revenue taxes, fees, charges, and enforce all forfeitures, penalties, tax. Okay, so BIR. Next, Commission on Election is the primary guardian of the ballot as the protector of the people's right of suffrage. So, in elections, so the COMELEC was in charge. They were the guardian of the ballot as the protector and the person's right of suffrage or right to vote. Then, the COMELEC endeavors to faithfully evenly discharge its solemn constitutional responsibility of ensuring and sanctity of elections. Then, function is their premier guardian of the ballot. Then, its principal role is to enforce, administer all laws and regulation relative to conduct of elections. So, all regulations, all policies uh, regarding with the elections. So, the COMELEC are in charge with that. Then, elections, not only elections but also in plebiscites, initiatives, and referendums and recalls. Next, Philippine Port Authority or PPE. So is the government is the primary government agencies concerned with the planning and development of the country's seaports. So PPE was the primary government concerned with the planning and the development or innovation of our country seaport. So it was established in 1974. So the PPA's charter was amended by Executive Order 857. So which expanded its function to include the integration and coordination of ports nationwide in function. So they were responsible for financing, management, and operation of public ports throughout the Philippines. So they were in charge or in the financing or responsible for the management and operation of all public ports throughout the whole country. Then next, Anti-Money Laundering Council or AMLC is the agency of the government of the Philippines that is tasked to implement the provisions of the Republic Act 9160, also known as the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2001. So they are the agency who is tasked by the government in the Philippines to implement the provision of the Act RA 9160, which is also known as the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2001. Then its function, it is authorized to inquire into or examine any particular bank deposits. So they were authorized to examine any bank deposits or investment that are deemed related to an unlawful activity. So all unlawful activity, all unlawful activity or the money laundering offense, which the Anti-Money Laundering Council was in charge to enforce. Next, Bureau of Immigration or BI, so is principally responsible for the administration. So The BI are responsible for administration, enforcement of immigration, citizenship, and alien admission, and registration of laws in accordance with the provisions of the Philippines Act Immigration Act of 1940. Then functions the Bureau of Immigration was given the sole authority to enforce, administer immigration and foreign nationals registration laws, including the admission, registration, exclusion, and deportation and repatriation of foreign nationals. They were in charge of any repatriation of foreign nationals, deportation, exclusion, registration, or the registrations laws, including the foreign nationals registration laws. So all the foreign nationals registration laws, including the admission or registration or any repatriation of any foreign nationals. Then land transportation office, or the which is known as LTO. So it's an agency of the government, Philippine government, under the Department of Transportation, or the OTR, responsible for all land transportation in the Philippines. So it aims to be the frontline government agency that showcases fast and efficient public service for a progressive land transportation sector. So LTO are also in charge or responsible for the public safety or public service for a progressive land transport sector. Its functions, so they were also authorized to inspect and to to look for a registration of any motor vehicles, and issuance of licenses, permits, and enforcement of land transportation rules and regulations, and adjudication of traffic cases. So their function is to inspect the registration of any motor vehicles, issuance of licenses and permits, and, law enforcement of land transportation rules. The next, or number 11, the Department of Health, or DOH. So is the executive department of the government of the Philippines responsible for ensuring access to basic public health services by all Filipinos through the provision of quality health care, the regulation of health services and products. So uh, the DOH are responsible for ensuring the access to the basic public health services by all Filipinos through the provision of quality health care. So next, their function is the promotion, protection, preservation, or restoration of the health of the people through the provision and delivery of health services. So they preserve, they protect, they promote the health of the people by the provision and delivery of health services, and so the regulation and encouragement of providers by health goods and services. Number 12, Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWS, is mandated to undertake the planning of infrastructure such as national roads and bridges, flood control, water resources project, and other public works, and the design, construction, and maintenance of national roads and bridges and major flood controls. Their functions, they serve as the engineering and construction arm of the government, which is tasked to continuously develop its technology for the purpose of ensuring the safety of all infrastructure facilities and securing for all public works and highways. Then the quality of construction in construction. Then DPWS is currently responsible for planning, not only for the construction, but also they were responsible for the planning, design, maintenance of the infrastructure, especially the national highways, flood control, water resources development, and other public works in accordance with national development objectives. So next, DOST, or the Department of Science and Technology, is the executive department of the Philippines government responsible for the coordination of science technology related projects in the Philippines and to formulate policies and projects in the fields of science and technology in support of the national development. So uh, they were responsible for the coordination of science technology related projects. So in a in any science and technology related projects, so the DOST are in charge or responsible to formulate policies and projects in the fields of science and technology in the support of national development. So its function, they were the provider of the world-class scientific and technological and innovative solutions that will lead to higher productivity and better quality of life. Then the DepEd, or the Department of Education, is the executive department of the Philippine government responsible for ensuring access to, promoting equity in, and improving the quality of basic education. So it is the main task of the agency is to manage and govern the Philippine system of basic education. Then function, so they formulates, implement, and coordinates policies, plans, programs, and projects in the areas of formal and non-formal basic education. Then last, the NBI, or the National Bureau of Investigation. So it's an agency of the Philippine government under the Department of Justice, which is responsible for handling and solving major high-profile cases that are in the interest of the nation. So function, the National Bureau of Investigation undertakes efficient detection and investigation of crimes and other offenses against the laws of the Philippines. So the NBI not only in investigation of crimes, but they were also in charge in the crime detection, and other offenses against the laws of the Philippines. So uh, renders technically assistance upon request in the investigation and detection of crimes and other offenses, coordinates with the other national and local police agencies in the maintenance of peace and order, and establishes and maintains an up-to-date scientific crime laboratory. So the National Bureau acts as a national clearinghouse of criminal and other information for the use of all prosecuting and law enforcement entities of the Philippines. So they were tasked in identification of records, of identifying marks, characteristics, and ownership of position of all firearms, as well as the test of bullets fired therefrom. So that's all, ma'am. That is all my discussion about. So thank you and have a good day.